Good morning and welcome to Vision in Action Live. We have a presentation today on contentment and fulfillment and a discussion with Geoffrey Kent, teacher, coach, entrepreneur, and founder of Think Big with Geoffrey Kent. Welcome, Mr. Kent, to Vision in Action Live. I'm Jim Boswell, your host and the author of Lifelong Fulfillment, Take Charge of Your Life. Today's presentation, where we call it Contentment is Fulfillment, is where we take a look at personal development initiatives championed by Dr. Neil Clark Warren back in 1997 and how they relate to your life. So Dr. Warren defines contentment as the following. The search for enduring contentment is a deep down, soul satisfying contentment that infuses your life with peace and serenity, giving you freedom and energy to express yourself and follow your dreams despite what others may think, and allows you to fall asleep at night without fretting about what might have been. So contentment is fulfillment. We want to translate that the discussion we're having about Dr. Warren's expose aligns very closely with lifelong fulfillment, which is the principles this podcast is based on. So the ground search for contentment is really the search for fulfillment as well. It's just a translation to current available product. There must be something more to life than duty, going along to get along, and prejudice without merit, and punctuated by fleeting moments of happiness. And, Dr. Warren espoused this, and we want to focus on some of the principles around that. Let's look further. So if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, at the very top is esteem and self-actualization. That's a point at which you have the respect of others and by others that encourages morality, creativity, spontaneity, problem solving, lack of prejudice, and acceptance of facts. If you look at Dr. Kahneman's system brain analogy, it's system 2 brain, which is the logical brain, versus the instinctive brain system imperatives. And it's where we're looking at promoting logic in the process of fulfillment. So discovering who you are, accepting it, and courageously pursuing your individual authenticity is your opportunity. It's not about settling for momentary happiness, which is the system brain, one brain reacting, where you get an emotional charge, but you have very little influence about when and how that happens. It is, in fact, a movement toward the achievement of deep and genuine contentment instead. So authentically content people live in the present. They actually dispense with their fear and judgment because of their self-knowledge and focus on facts. They appreciate themselves. They do hunger for the truth. They're probably continuous learners. They adapt flexibly to circumstances. They operate with gratitude and dignity. They laugh easily and they rest well at the end of the day. They exhibit an inner peace that you might notice, and the confidence in doing good outcomes, doing one's best, and being who they are in all ways, and then taking good care of themselves. So are you a candidate for contentment, or in other words, fulfillment? Well, you may be stuck. You may be bored, empty, frantic for entertainment. Your work may be frustrating. Your marriage may be ambivalent. Your spirit may be considered fatigued, and you may feel consistently lonely. So if you're stuck, then it's probably time for a change, to acknowledge that you have an opportunity here to do better. So who's happy? If we look at the statistics, there's simply not enough of us achieving happiness. And happy, again, is a misnomer in that it should be regarded as contentment and fulfillment. So Dennis Woolley, an expert who sampled the American populace, basically thought the content people are about 20% of Americans. And another couple of psychologists, Archibald Hart and Father John Powell, thought it was more like 10 to 15%. And here's the rub. Given a choice, 80% of people prefer enduring contentment to mere happiness or wealth. So the demand is there, but the execution simply is much shorter than its potential. So if you do the contentment inventory that Dr. Warren has in his book, you have to go through a rebirth process. So you're going to experience the pain of your inauthenticity. In other words, if you're moving toward authenticity right now, you don't have it in the mainstream in your makeup. This is an opportunity to engage a support group for your transition because you're going to start making changes. You'll want some perspective. You'll need a sounding board, so to speak, as you move forward. And you need to start thinking about weaning yourself off of what we call happiness highs. These are unpredictable, and we'll talk about what they're characterized later. And you need to budget some time for inner reflection and to exercise yourself in inner reflection if you've never done it or you're doing it poorly. So let's go back to happiness highs. One of the objectives here is to overcome an addiction to the happiness highs. This is an over-reliance on pleasing others, partying, sex, eating, exercise, shopping, TV, or working hard. It's not real, nor is it enduring. And again, it's not often in your control. So the path to authentic contentment that Dr. Warren asks us to engage has to do with starting out with a growth mindset. You can grow from where you are to some objective or new reality that you want to achieve. You can move up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and happiness starts in the middle, so you can move beyond that by investing in yourself. And that'll drive your personal esteem and your self-actualization. So what you have to do that is, number one, you need to take psychological inventories. You need to know who you are, what you want, and those sorts of things. It takes inner reflection. It takes asking yourself, where am I strong? Where am I weak? What can I do about it? It takes having clear intentions. You know where you are today. How will you know where you want to go until you have those psych profiles and define progress toward those as goals and tactics? You need to retain clear values, your integrity, your honesty, your clear opinion about what things happen and how you judge morality and other values. And you need to depend on quality data. In the lifelong fulfillment arena, we call this factual data. In other words, it's not subject to unjustified opinion, and it's not something that has been incorporated in our upbringing. And then when you're doing it, you need to actually track your progress, and you need to use the support systems, which we don't have time to go into here today, but Dr. Warren has it in his book. So if you look at it graphically, in your brain, the left-hand circle, you have internal data. That's about who you are. You have your values, which is, again, about what you are. You bring in necessary external data, and you let your brain work on this to do all the things we see here in this list. So when you're done, you're making good, solid, healthy decisions for yourself. And there are things you can actually adhere to and become authentic about who you are, where you want to go, and how you want to do it. And this provides you enduring and ongoing contentment. So to do contentment, we're going to summarize a few more facts. You need to make conscious decisions about your new intentional life based on the most credible information that you have access to. You are in a complete charge of your own personal control booth or your conscience, and definitely you're not under others' influence, coercion, standards, or dictates. Sometimes that's difficult to let go of, but you really need to do that before you take the personality profiles and before you set your goals. You also need to take measures to reassert your will and responsibility for the choices that you make, including changes that may occur with parents, peers, employers, politics, religions, and institutions. And this may be difficult. It may be intense. It may be, in fact, fierce. But you need to have the confidence that you can persevere over time to make these changes. And this will reassert values like fairness, honesty, kindness, freedom, and generosity, which will not only stand you in good stead, but inform your decisions. So, in essence, from 1997, when Dr. Warren was talking about contentment, contentment essentially is what lifelong fulfillment is today. Our messages are very similar. Work to be authentic and discard the hook of temporary happiness. And then promote your work to achieve self-contentment or self-actualization, also known as fulfillment. And progress is both short and long term. This is a lifetime commitment from wherever you start. And you need to initiate it, you need to endure the speed bumps and persevere and prosper, and then initiate some more. And you start this with the newsletter, Contentment is Fulfillment, on lifelongfulfillment.com. And there's other resource material there that'll help you carry it forward. Now's the time in our podcast when we hear from point solutions, subject matter experts, and people that are leading self-directed lives. Today's discussion is entrepreneurship. So join me, please, in welcoming Geoffrey Kent, teacher, coach, entrepreneur, and founder of Think Big with geoffreykent.com. Mr. Kent holds a BSBA, an MBA at Rotterdam School of Management, and another MBA at Wharton School of Business. Welcome to Vision in Action Live, Mr. Kent. It's great to have you on board today.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Now, in that introduction, I may not have hit on the high points that you'd like to share with our audience, so please feel free to elaborate on that as you think best.
Yeah, I'm not big on tooting my own horn, so I think you've done a great job. Yeah,
Okay.
you've covered all the high points, I believe.
Okay. All right. So let's dive in to entrepreneurship. And why don't you start us out with some basics? We need to understand, how entrepreneurship and passion work, whether you get the passion before the entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur by nature and you have to do the discovery of passion and establish a vision and that sort of thing. Not all of us come from your realm. And so how about give us some guidance about how that all fits together?
Yeah, so this is actually one of the most discussed topics when I blog regularly on a platform called thelineable.com, and so I post questions entrepreneurs should be asking themselves every day on the platform. And one of the questions I ask, again, that's gets a lot of traction, is are entrepreneurs born or made, right? So
Good
uh,
question.
and from my perspective, entrepreneurs are born. The entrepreneur as a title, I think is there are attributes or qualities that someone possesses that they're born with, and I boil it down to kind of two things. Entrepreneurs view the world through a lens of monetization. So, um, you know, they'll say about comedians view the world through a lens of humor. They see everything, see the funny in everything they see, or they're able to see the funny in everything. I think entrepreneurs are the same in that, you know, they view the world through a lens of monetization. So they see ways to make money in ways that the average person does not. So, I'll tell, entrepreneurs when I speak, when I public speak fairly frequently, that, if an entrepreneur, let's say, enjoys taking 1 hour walks every day, and that 1 hour walk every single day, they'll come up with a hundred things that they've seen on their walk that they feel they can monetize, and create into a business. And they also think that every one of those 100 ideas is the best idea, invented since sliced bread. And I think the really interesting trait that entrepreneurs have is they're willing to go homeless to prove to themselves that any one of those 100 ideas is the best idea that's ever been invented. The average person isn't going to sacrifice that much to do anything, right? So I think that's what sets an entrepreneur apart from anyone else. Now, I say that in you don't have to be an entrepreneur to run a business, you know. Um, you know, however, I've never seen a successful business that doesn't have an entrepreneur in it. But the
Mhm.
entrepreneur in the business doesn't have to be the founder.
Mhm.
You just need someone who, no matter how, business is hard, it's very difficult, and you're constantly faced with obstacles every day. But if you don't love what you do, it's incredibly easy to just give up and say, hey, I don't like this. I'm not going to suffer through all this humiliation, whatever. I'm going to find something else to do, and the business is going to fail if with that kind of attitude. So there needs to be someone in the business who's like, I don't really care what we face today, tomorrow, or the next day. I love this so much that I'm just going to keep plugging at it until we succeed, right? Every
Mhm.
no gets me closer to yes. Um, so, for me, I was born with those traits. I don't know where I got them. People have asked me, "How did you become an entrepreneur?" I still haven't discovered the answer to that question. I did not know any entrepreneurs in my family. Didn't my family wasn't friends with any entrepreneurs in our local community. My dad is a career military, so he was in the Air Force all of my life. He was in the Army when he was younger. So we traveled all over the world. I've lived on 4 continents, 10 of the 50 U.S. states. But we typically strategic defense Air Force bases are in small communities, and
Mhm.
we weren't friends with any entrepreneurs. So I'm not really sure where this trait came from, but I have it, and and I'll do all of the things that I've mentioned to prove that I'm an entrepreneur, and have done it repeatedly over the course of my life. But yeah, I mean, I can teach people how to run a business. There are there is a success formula to running an entrepreneurial venture. So
Mhm.
entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs are two completely different concepts. To me, an entrepreneur means you possess certain God-given talents or traits. Entrepreneurship means that you're running an entrepreneurial venture, and you don't have to be an entrepreneur to do that. You just need
Mhm.
to do what, infuse into your business the things that allow a venture to succeed.
Okay. Um, so let's say what are the qualities of an entrepreneur? I mean, you've mentioned that being born to it as opposed to, say, educating yourself to do it.
Mhm.
But what are the characteristics of that particular entrepreneur?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's as I said, it's constantly seeing everything that you experience in life through a lens of monetization.
Hmm.
It's just going through life normally like anyone else would, but every time you see something, seeing a business opportunity in what you see. You're able to transform very mundane things into, hey, I think I could make money doing this in some way,
Right.
shape, or form, right? I could turn this into a business. You know, you could be walking down the street and someone's cutting their grass, right? And you're saying to yourself, wow, I think I could turn that into a business. I
Hmm.
could charge people to cut their grass, and if I get enough customers to do that, I've got a thriving business. Or whatever I mean, it's just how you view the world, and as I said, and then there's that. It's going to be hard, and it is hard, but you're going to you're going to persist at it until you succeed. So
Right.
you don't really sometimes you actually need it. It might help to have a significant other or husband, wife, whatever the case may be, to kind of keep you grounded. To say, hey, we actually don't want to go. We don't want to be homeless. So maybe
Right.
if you're going to do this, maybe I the other person has a stable job, or or we save up a year's worth of income or something like. Uh,
Mhm.
because as I said, the entrepreneur will just go off and do whatever it is You know,
Okay.
they come up with an idea and they're off and running.
Okay. So I have the makeup of an entrepreneur and I have a passion for it
Hmm.
as a career path. And my understanding is most entrepreneurs generally wind up starting on their own as opposed to finding somebody to work with necessarily or to fund it or whatever.
Right.
So it sounds like I have to then say, okay, of all the things, the 100 things I know I could do and make money, where do I invest my interest and my talent and that sort of thing? Maybe you can speak to that process or how that actually happens.
Yeah. So when I work with an entrepreneur, when I'm starting to work with someone, my initial series of questions is going to be around discovering whether they have a passion for what they do, right?
Mm.
So, if I meet someone and they start to talk about the struggles that they're having with their business, it's critically important for me to understand, do they love what they do, right? Because one very easy solution to them having problems is the fact that they don't love what they do, right? And that's other people see that, and they
Mhm.
react to that, appropriately. So your business doesn't succeed. So I will always I like to ask two questions of every entrepreneur, really every entrepreneur I meet, and the first question is, why did you become an entrepreneur in the first place, right? So I want to understand whether or not they truly are an entrepreneur. Now, again, that doesn't, I'm not going to convince them to stop doing what they're doing based on that answer to that question. I just need to understand, are you an entrepreneur? And if I find out you're not, I want to find out whether you have an entrepreneur working with you, right? Um, but then once I get the answer to that question, and usually, you people reveal a lot of very great information about themselves through the answer to that question, because they're, when we decide to, to take this leap, there's usually incredibly rich stories that go behind why you decided to become an entrepreneur in the first place. So then once you've gotten that story, the second question becomes, again, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a serial entrepreneur, right? You're always coming up with ideas, so you have tons of ideas in your head of things that businesses you want to start, but you elevate one of those ideas above everything else, right?
Mhm.
So I want to understand, why this business now, right? Why did you elevate this particular business? What was it about this business that made you think that you could monetize this faster than any of your other ideas, or wanted to monetize it faster than any of your other ideas? Again, incredibly rich stories that come around the answer to that question as well, and so this, but the answer to these two questions kind of get to, do you love what you do?
Mhm.
I found that, you know, the probability for success as an entrepreneur increases exponentially, you know, the closer that your business is wrapped around a passion, a personal passion, you know.
Right.
So if you do what you love what you do. The love you have for what you do permeates everything you do.
Mhm.
Everyone sees that and they react positively to it, right? So, if people see that you have this exuberant passion for what you do, it's much easier to get customers. It's much easier to get strategic alliance partners to work with you and feed you with pre-qualified leads. It's much easier to get people to work with you, whether they be co-founders, executive leaders, managers, staff, advisors, mentors, people that would serve on your board. Uh,
Mhm. Okay.
and these are all advocates who can help build your business, right? So when they see you're excited, they get excited, and then they go tell other people about the excited person they work with, and the exciting company they work for, and that helps your business.
Okay. So, in my experience, coming from Silicon Valley, we had entrepreneurs that, had the drive and certainly the pleasure in it, as you've talked about,
Mhm.
but didn't always have the basic business education.
Right.
And in fact, I spent some time doing small business consulting where the entrepreneur has created a business, it's fallen into what? Status quo, shall we say,
Yeah.
and they're frustrated with it and they don't understand how to get out of it. So it sounds like you also take it to the next level where you train them around the business principles that will focus, their drive and interests and so forth. In fact, you mentioned things like how do I focus on products, services, and solutions and so.
Mhm, mhm.
Maybe you could share that with our audience.
Yeah, I come at this from a unique perspective. I'm not the only one who can say this, but I don't think there's a very long list of people. So, you mentioned in the beginning, I attended the Wharton School of Business. I triple majored at Wharton, but one of my majors was entrepreneurial management, right? So I took 5 classes there, had 5 different professors, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. Um, I then taught entrepreneurship at Lincoln University. I was an adjunct professor of entrepreneurship.
Huh.
I taught 5 classes in entrepreneurship, both in international and domestic entrepreneurship in the 2010s. And then over 5 decades, I've launched more than 20 ventures, right? So I sold my last company 11 years ago in 2013. It was a private cloud computing business in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Launched it 6 years prior to selling it, morphed it into one of the fastest growing companies in the world, and then was able to sell it and really haven't had to work since.
Mhm.
So yeah, so when I and kind of how I found the blueprint for success when I um, before I started this cloud computing business in 2007, I actually went back to Penn's campus and sat down with my 5 professors armed with one question. And the question was, if you were to give me one piece of advice that if I implemented it would maximize the probability I'd succeed in this venture, what would that advice be? And I had 5 incredible conversations with my professors. Each professor gave me a litany of books they wanted me to read about scaling exponential business growth. I took the time to read all the books. By the time I finished the last book, it kind of occurred to me that it's like I'd read the same book over and over and over again.
Mhm.
Successful entrepreneurs attribute the same things to their success, right? So I said, okay, well, wait a minute. There's got to be something to this. So I sat down with a pad and paper, started to jot down all these repetitive themes that I had read about and had heard about through my conversations with my professors. And then before I launched the business, I looked at the list and said, I'm going to purposely infuse all of these traits into this business just to see what happens, you know, because I wasn't a believer at that point. And lo and behold, everything worked.
Mhm.
So I became a convert. But then, after I'd sold my business and kind of reflected on what had happened, I said, I can teach other people how to do this. There is a formula for entrepreneurial success. It's
Right.
actually it's easy to find because successful entrepreneurs are all vain enough to write books about their experiences, right?
Yeah,
So you
I'm
go on
sure.
to Amazon.com, Barnes Noble, Borders, whatever, and you can find the books. The books are purposely written so that they're easy to read.
Mhm.
The information's accessible. It's easy to understand. It's incredibly difficult to implement, right? That's where the hang up happens.
Right.
And so, I've always been told that, hey, Jeff, you have a way of taking incredibly complex stuff and make it incredibly simplistic. So I said, you know what? I think I can teach other people how to do this. I can give them access to the formula. Um, but I think where the key to making this work is to customize the formula to your strengths and likes, right? So you have to take someone through this process of understanding what their strengths, weaknesses, likes, and dislikes are so that they can focus what they do in their business on what they like to do and what they're good at doing and let them outsource everything else, right? But you need to
Mhm.
know what you need to outsource. I always tell people it's more important to know what you don't know than what you do know.
Right.
And so you can figure out, how do I mitigate that? Because all that stuff still has to be done. It just doesn't need to be done by you because you're not going to do it efficiently. You don't like it and you're not good at it.
Right.
So find someone else to do it. But you need to identify early on that you don't know how to do it or don't like doing it so that you can find a way to get it done because it has to get done. So that's kind of, I don't know whether I answered your question. I apologize if I didn't. So, um, but but yeah, that's how I approach this process.
Yeah. So it sounds like, if I'm hearing you right, you wind up working with an entrepreneur. There's things the entrepreneur may not necessarily know about him or herself, and you help them really come to grips with that so that they optimize their contribution and figure out where they need additional help to
Right.
succeed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and make a business out of it, one that's
Right.
successful and focused.
Right. Right. And then I also delve into sometimes, and I actually have an exercise that I walk people through with this. Sometimes when you don't know something, it's not that you're not good at it because you don't know it, not because you couldn't be good at it. So a
Right,
lot of times it's helping the entrepreneur understand, hey, you actually might like doing this.
right.
You probably need to get some additional education to learn how to do this because you'd find fun in this, right?
Mhm.
uh, but right now it's a weakness because you haven't been exposed to it. and
Right.
as human beings we don't get exposed to a lot of stuff, you know and as business owners as well, we there are a lot of concepts that we never get exposed to.
Right. So your client base that actually comes to you and takes your program, which we see here in your background,
Hmm.
I can, my automatic assumption is you're getting entrepreneurs that feel themselves stuck or in trouble and that sort of thing, as opposed to entrepreneurs that have the ideas and want to, create a vision, if you will, of how to now implement that. Maybe you can speak to, what does your clientele look like? What are they coming to you for?
Yeah, my clientele is a broad swath, right? So I work with people who haven't started yet, but
Hmm.
have ideas, and then I have clients who have started, and they run the gamut of, they could be anywhere in the entrepreneurial life cycle, right?
Right.
So you talked about my educational background, but I started my career in corporate America, right? So, my first job out of college was with the Xerox Corporation in sales. I left Xerox and went to AT&T. 11 years into my career, I decided to go back to school and get an MBA. When I
Hmm.
came out of my MBA program, I worked for Julius Dr. J. Irving, the basketball player, managing part of his portfolio for a couple of years, and then
Right.
went to Deloitte Consulting. So,
Hmm.
I had this, alternate side, this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, thing going on, and that, I was very successful in corporate America, but I hated it. I was doing
Right.
entrepreneurship part time, failing, but loved it. Right. So at the age of 41, I said, I'd rather be happy than rich, and so
Yeah.
I'm quitting corporate America and I'm pursuing entrepreneurship full time. And it's the absolute best decision I ever made because, as soon as I transitioned from doing entrepreneurship part time to full time, everything I did as an entrepreneur succeeded. Right.
Right.
So, uh, you know, for me, that was what I took. So, again, when I was at Deloitte, I focused on what's called turnaround management consulting. I was helping companies get out of crisis, right? So
Hmm.
I was part of a team of people that flew down to Delray Beach, Florida, when Sunbeam declared bankruptcy and helped them get out of bankruptcy, right?
Right.
So I've worked with multi-billion-dollar Fortune 500 companies, but I've worked with solopreneurs as well, and everything in between. So when you talk about the clients that come to me, clients feel comfortable working with me regardless of their size,
Hmm.
or their stage of business, because they know I've worked with companies of all sizes at every stage of the life cycle, and I've learned this, I've studied this craft, I've taught this craft, and I've done this craft
Yeah.
successfully. So,
Yeah.
as I said, I think I have a unique perspective on how I can work with people. Um, I'm not completely unique. I think there are other people, but I don't think the list is long.
Right. Well, and your advice is very concentrated with experience and professional advice. So That's
Yeah. I mean, I teach what I know. I don't, I know what
right,
I don't know, and I don't try to teach people that. I'll admit readily that, hey, that's not my area of expertise, but the things that I know, that I double down on teaching those things to people, and so they always know if I'm giving you advice about something or I'm trying to guide you through something, that I've gone through it myself.
right. Well, we're coming to the end of our little podcast session, so I wanted to just give you a chance if you had any closing comments for the audience or any comments on lifelong fulfillment for our audience, please feel free to do that.
Yeah. So we didn't get into this. You talked about it. Well, you mentioned something about working in Silicon Valley. So my parting thing will be, because and I'm going to tell you what these 6 traits are that any entrepreneur should infuse into their business. So I don't know what percentage of the companies that you saw in Silicon Valley exhibited all 6 of these things, but it would be interesting to hear from someone who was actually in the lion's den. But one is, you have a passion for what you do, and your business is built around a passion, right? So that's one. Two is, you're laser focused on serving a niche target market that you can become a dominant supplier of your products or services to. Three is, you've surrounded yourself with larger strategic alliance partners, larger companies that fall into one of 4 quadrants. They're either companies that provide complementary products or services, complementers, their suppliers, their customers, or potentially competitors. Fourth is, you've infused world-class customer service into how you treat your customers to transform them into evangelists that buy everything you sell over the duration of life of your business, and they refer you to their peers.
Mhm.
Um, 5, you're focused on the leading metrics that lead to sales, not just the lagging metric of a sale itself, so that you're ensured that you will consistently either meet or exceed your sales goals. And then last but not least, you've surrounded yourself with an A team of um, of people that includes co-founders, executive leaders, managers, staff, advisors, mentors, a board of directors. These are all, you've got the right people on your bus, and you place them in the right seat, right, to give yourself the highest probability of success, and executing on your vision. So I don't know how many companies possess all 6 of those traits simultaneously. My guess is very few, but that's why I work to help people. I don't believe any entrepreneurial venture needs to fail. I believe
Right,
every business can succeed. I think
right,
it's just a matter of taking those 6 traits and fusing them into a business. Having the entrepreneur focus their efforts within their business on the things they love to do and are good at doing, and I think the probability of success increases exponentially.
right. Well, just to drop a few names, that was exactly what I did starting in
Yeah,
1981.
yeah,
Jerry Sanders at AMD broke all the molds. And I actually worked with Jensen Wang, who now runs NVIDIA.
yeah,
And yes, all of those 6 resonate with me.
yeah, yeah.
For, thanks for reminding me.
Well, I'm sure when someone came to pitch and you saw those 6 things in action, you were like, okay, that's
Yeah,
someone we want to invest in.
I get
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Yeah. So maybe what you would do for us now is just make sure our audience knows how to catch you. I see it on the back screen there on
yeah.
your website. Any other contact points or way to get your book or engage your class?
Yeah,
Please.
no. Yeah, if they need to contact me, just go to www.thinkbigwithgeoffreykent.com, and just remember Jeffrey is the old English spelling, or think of the giraffe with Toys R Us.
Right.
It's with the G, Geoffrey. Yeah, that's the easiest way to get to me. I have my course teaches you these 6 concepts in great detail. So it's a 7 week self-paced online course, very interactive. I'm actually completing my first full book. I have an ebook that I sell on Amazon now, but I'm completing my first book. It's completely written. It's actually been in edit for 2 weeks, so it should be out of the edit process by the end of this month, and go to print in August, and hopefully we'll be ready for distribution in September.
Great. We'll look for it.
All right, sounds good.
Okay.
I would tell you the name of it, but we still haven't, decided on a
When
name.
you figure it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. Well, we've got 4 names, but we're reaching out to people to get their feedback, and so we haven't settled on a name yet.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we wish you the best of luck with the book. And everybody should be paying attention if they're an entrepreneur to what you have to say. Thanks again. We'll see you around.
All right, thank you very much.
And in closing, I want to thank our guest today, Mr. Geoffrey Kent. Thank you for tuning in to Vision in Action Live. We hope you found this interesting. I know I did. Vision in Action Live podcasts are every week, and they contain important personal development material from Lifelong Fulfillment and interviews with subject matter experts and people already leading self-directed lives. This helps us understand what's possible and some of the tools set to get there. Check out the newsletters for details of the podcast, the book Lifelong Fulfillment, collateral materials, and other incidentals at lifelongfulfillment.com. You can find us on Facebook, LinkedIn, other podcasts, LinkedIn Local Network, and KFRED Internet Radio. I'm Jim Boswell. I'm your host. Comments and questions are welcome at the website and at jim@lifelongfulfillment.com. We look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Vision in Action Live. Until then, carpe diem.